Welcome back to The Small Nonprofit, the podcast where your passion meets action. Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of the Small Nonprofit Podcast. I'm your host, Maria Rio, and today we're talking about something that every nonprofit professional needs to hear. How do you spot red flags during your job search? So, the nonprofit sector is definitely full of very amazing, life-changing organizations doing great work. But unfortunately, not each one of these organizations is well managed or stable. So if you're not careful, you might find yourself in a workplace that's unstable, mismanaged, where there's burnout and maybe even toxic. So this episode is all about helping you navigate the job search with confidence. And to do that, I'm sharing 9 red flags to watch out for when you're exploring opportunities in the sector. So these are more subtle than a chaotic interview process or asking you for unpaid labor and will require you to dig a little deeper during your conversations and your interviews. If you're gearing up for your next job search or just want to see what's out there, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Red flag number 1, expanding programming without secured funding. So, what does this look like? It might look like an organization adding or expanding a program without knowing where the funds will come from. They don't have a plan past actually launching the program. So, why is this a problem? This signals to me poor financial planning and a potential risk to your current programs in this new one that you're setting up. So, a way to assess this is asking during your interview process, how does the organization ensure funding sustainability for new programs? And what is the financial plan for supporting this expected initiative long term? So, trying to see what the plan is before you're responsible for funding it. Red flag number 2, ignoring past strategic failures. Organizations always talk about their new strategic plan, but if they don't acknowledge what went wrong in their past one, or why they weren't able to accomplish everything that they thought they would, that's a red flag. Like, you definitely want to reflect on what didn't work. If they're not learning from mistakes, they're very likely to repeat them. So, what to ask in the interview process? How does your organization evaluate and adapt based on past strategic plans? What lessons were learned from the past plan, and how are they informing this one? Red flag number 3, ignoring past financial mistakes. If you worked at an organization that has a history of layoffs, budget cuts, or recurring financial instability with no plan to address the underlying issues, you know that this is a red flag that you wish you had looked out for. It's definitely one that I wished I had looked out for in past roles. So, this is a sign that there might be a lack of accountability and poor financial decision making, or maybe no checks and balances to make sure that things are going smoothly. So, what to ask during your interview? How has the organization addressed past financial challenges? And what measures are in place to ensure financial stability moving forward? Red flag number 4, your board's lack of governance knowledge. I think we've all worked at organizations that have a board that's disengaged or ill equipped or doesn't really understand what the mission or the organization is all about. So that can be rough because how are they going to do their governance responsibilities well? And do they even know what those responsibilities are? Like, do they report back to members? Do they know about voting? And do they have an annual general meeting or audited financial statements? What does that look like? This can be a problem if they don't understand governance because it could lead to legal, strategic, or operational risks. So they might not know what to look for, they might not know what they're responsible for, or worse, they might overstep into trying to be the ED and trying to manage staff. So for this one, you can get a clearer picture by asking, what role does the board play in financial oversight and strategic planning? What training or onboarding do board members receive to prepare them for governance? I feel like in a lot of cases, organizations think that the board members will onboard each other. So, like, the board chair is responsible for that, and I'm not going to touch it. But unfortunately, that's not often the case, especially if they're disengaged or ill equipped themselves as a board chair. So sometimes the ED will have to step in, and you want to see that there is some sort of onboarding process, that they are trying to understand governance better. And I think another one question that might be helpful here is, how often do people turn over, and what kind of skills are they looking for new board members? Because you might get stuck in an organization where the board hasn't turned over in a decade and they just don't have the knowledge. They've never had the knowledge, and it just keeps going and going. Red flag number 5, egocentric leadership. Leadership is so important in our sector, and oftentimes it's not done well, leading to a lack of psychological safety and a really bad culture. This can look like leadership decisions that are made in a vacuum. People don't know how they're being made, they don't get to have input or an opinion, and it really fosters a really toxic top down culture. This is obviously a problem because it stifles creativity, safety, collaboration, and morale, which means that probably you have a revolving door of staff. So maybe as a fundraiser, you will only be there for a year to a year and a half, or maybe you'll have to keep meeting new program people every couple of months. So, what to ask? How does leadership involve staff in decision making processes? I think the answer to this will be really illuminating. Is it just we collect their feedback and that's it? That's all we do. We listen. Or is it we collect their feedback, we invite them to be part of the conversation, we discuss challenges openly, and we report back, right? I think that's a stronger answer. If you want to push it a little bit more into the community centric fundraising area, how does leadership involve the community in decision making processes, or even volunteers or partners, right? Like, how are decisions being made, and are they being made by people who may not know what people are going through or may not have that lived experience to inform their decision making? Something else to ask is, what is the organization's approach to fostering collaboration and innovation? So, we've all heard that we've always done it this way line. That's not usually the best workspace, especially if you want to do things in a fresh manner and you have your own approach and want to try to shake up the system. You really want to prioritize innovative and collaborative workspaces. Who doesn't love collaboration, anyways, right? So that would be a good question to ask. Red flag number 6, absence of 360 reviews. I think a lot of nonprofits don't do 360 reviews, but the ones that do really impress me. 360 review means it's not just your boss who's reviewing your performance. Maybe they have a vendetta against you, or maybe they're not understanding what fundraising is, but it is a review that takes the input of colleagues, people who report to you, people you report to, and just day-to-day interactions. When you have something like 360 reviews, you're able to hold people accountable, hold leadership accountable for what they do day to day. It helps integrate staff, peer, and other people's voices. Without 360 reviews, there's less accountability. And often, poor leadership behaviors persist. The board might not catch on that the ED is a horrible bully if they don't take the input of the staff, right? Sometimes the ED maintains the only connection between the organization and the board, so they're able to sweet talk their way out of things or downplay issues. And I think 360 reviews really help eliminate that and really help build this culture of trust, because not only am I getting reviewed as a staff person, but so are you. I think it brings the best out of everyone. Red flag number 7, not meaningfully measuring program impact. As a fundraiser, this is the bane of my existence, trying to chase people down to see what are the quantitative and qualitative impacts of your program. Can I talk to someone? I need to collect the story, right? So, how do you know that you're moving towards your strategic goals and priorities, or that you're having the effect in your programs that you want to have on your community if you don't assess them? You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So, this looks like no data collection, no evaluation, no metrics to know that you're being successful. If you don't have a logic model that says we're going to serve 30,000 people and you're not tracking how many people you're serving, or it's 10,000 people coming back and backing again, so you're not actually hitting 30,000 unique individuals. If you're not evaluating, it's going to be really hard as an organization to prove your impact. Not only is it going to be hard to prove your impact and solicit funds, but you might actually be misspending funds. The organization might not be doing the most effective initiatives. So they might be spending like $1 million serving 100 people, which, if it's really deep service, might be perfectly fine. But if it's very surface level, maybe one touch initiatives, like, it's not fine. This might actually also damage credibility with the broader communities. You really want to make sure that you're being as effective as possible, that you're able to prove your impact, and that the programs are being evaluated. Now, how do you assess that through the job interview? Easy. Ask this: how does the organization measure and report program impact? So if they say, we haven't had an annual report for 3 years, dig deeper. Do not let that go. If they give you an answer that says, hey, we have an evaluation committee, they meet monthly, we actually know how successful our programs are, and we do after the fact, like, check in once they graduate from the program, we follow up every 6 months, then that's a green flag. Another question that you might have is, what data collection tools or methods are used to evaluate success? The tools that they use or the methods could be really important in telling you who they're excluding, right? So if they're using, for example, only online surveys, they might not be reaching people who don't take online surveys or who don't have access to the internet. Digging a little deeper there is a really good pathway. Flag number 8, overlooking key responsibilities. This one sounds a little bit vague. It sounds like, how could someone overlook a key responsibility? But I know that you've seen it. It's people who are overlooking essential tasks and neglecting parts of their role because I'm just too busy. I'm too busy to do a strategy. I'm too busy to talk to our landlord about this washroom issue. They're very important things that are not happening because I'm so busy. So, why is this a problem? It might signal poor prioritization, right? Or inefficiency, or even lead to missed opportunities to be better as an organization or as a service provider. So I think that's a really important one to look for. And how to assess this externally is through asking, how does the organization ensure key responsibilities are met despite limited resources? We all work with limited resources in the nonprofit sector, so we have to make it work. We can't just be like, oh, no, we can't. That's not an option. The next question is, how does leadership support staff in managing workloads? So if someone's too busy to meet their expectations, that might also be a problem. It might point to burnout. It might point to not having enough staff to do the work. So how is that actually being addressed by the organization? Red flag number 9, poor work-life balance. This one is one of the less subtle ones on this list, but it's still one that you want to be really deeply aware of. So it might look, oh, yes, sometimes we ask people to work on weekends to make sure that events are running smoothly. Or most people stay here until 6, 7 p.m. I've actually seen it even in job postings where it says, If you're expecting a regular 9 to 5, we really care about what we do. So it's not that kind of environment. Playing up the guilt of, do you really care about the cause if you're not giving us your life soul and abandoning your family? Mentions of long hours, weekend work, or limited time off are a signal of this red flag. This is a problem because it's unsustainable. It can impact your mental health or the team's productivity. It can just be a really not healthy environment to work in. So, what to ask is, what is the organization's approach to supporting work life balance? Maybe they have something to say, like whenever we see someone working at 3 a.m., we shut down their computer. That's something that I've actually had to say to people that I've managed. Please do not email me at that time. I'm going to have to completely shut you off. Are there clear policies for after hours communication and time off? When I'm on vacation, are you going to be emailing me? Because you should not be emailing me. You should not talk to me. So, like setting those boundaries and understanding how those boundaries are currently being treated to people that currently work there is a good indication of whether you want to work there. So, now that we've covered all the red flags, I just want you to center yourself. The job search can be a total tornado, especially when you're passionate about a cause. But no matter how exciting the cause is and how much you love the work, you deserve to work in an environment that values your well being, your growth, and your contributions. So, by watching out for these red flags, you can avoid unnecessary stress and find an organization where you can actually thrive, right? So, here are some few steps to help you apply this checklist in your job search. Step one, do your research. Look at the organization's financial statements, reviews on Glassdoor, and any available strategic plans. Step two, ask the right questions. Use the prompts from this episode to dig deeper into interviews. And if something sounds off, feel free to dive in deeper. Step three, trust your gut. You're super smart and you're going to crush it. So if something feels off, take it seriously, explore further, and know when to step away. Step four, talk to current or former employees. They can provide valuable insight into the culture and operations. Step five, prioritize your needs. Know your non-negotiables, your boundaries, whether it's work-life balance, leadership accountability, or program sustainability. In the end, the nonprofit sector needs passionate, talented people like you, but that doesn't mean that you should settle for less than what you deserve. So stay vigilant, ask the right questions, and find a role that aligns with your values, supports your growth, and makes the impact you want to see in the world. Anyways, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode gave you clarity or confidence in your job search, I'd love to hear about it. If you would like to fill out our burnout check quiz, you can also check that out in the show notes below so you can see if it's time to actually leave your current role. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And as always, if you want to see this episode, you can watch it on YouTube. Together, we can definitely build a sector where everyone feels happy, healthy, and collaborative. Until next time, take care, keep leading with purpose, and remember, you deserve a workplace that values you as much as you value its mission. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Small Nonprofit. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with our guests directly or find me on LinkedIn. Let's keep moving money to mission and prioritizing our well-being. Bye for now.